Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the ICE podcast. And I am so excited today to be joined by Jordan Nickerson, who is the founder of Rookies here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And if you've ever been to Lynchburg, you know that Rookies is like the place to get dessert. And I remember being a college student when Rookies first opened, and like literally everyone wanting to go there. It was like an instant hit. And so today we're just going to talk with Jordan some about the act of like being a rookie, being willing to jump into something and learn along the way, learn as you go, and also how you can build a business that's built around your values and is just really good for the community. So Jordan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
So for someone that has never been to Rookies, like hasn't been to Lynchburg or something, tell us a little bit about like what Rookies is about and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so we're an ice cream cookie sandwich company, which sounds like a mouthful, but essentially pick your cookie, pick your ice cream, we'll put it together. And so we've found after a couple of years this monicum that we've stuck to of just memorable dessert experiences. So we're an emphasis on, we're trying to create an experience when you come with your friends or family, trying to kind of make us be the destination of your evening. And that's surrounds around cookies and ice cream. And so we started in this little truck, and we've kind of found our little path here over the last 5 years to expand into what we are today.
Yeah, awesome. So I know that you guys, or you personally got your start. You were like an RA at Liberty, and an RD, and then eventually started this company. So tell me a little bit of the process for how you got started and even the vision behind like getting started with Rookies.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief because I think it's a fun story. Like you said, so I grew up I was in Liberty, and I stuck around for a couple years to work as a resident director there, which essentially means you get a free apartment on campus and a meal plan and a lot of these fringe perks. And it also operates kind of like a teacher's job where you're heavy on school years times, and then by the summers you got a lot of free time, maybe a couple meetings a week, nothing too crazy. And so it was very common for resident directors to have summer jobs to some extent, or maybe something part-time that they'd pick up a little heavier. And around the time I was 23 or 24, I started to wrestle with just what's next in my life. I knew I was in a very transitional job. I was getting my MBA with the job I was working. I loved development. I loved the outlet for creativity that I had with being a resident director. And working with college kids was super fun. And so I was starting to kind of take this tally sheet of what I liked, what I didn't like, what I was good at, what I was bad at. And I'll remember the day hopefully forever, but I was washing dishes in my tiny little shoebox of an apartment on campus kitchen. We didn't have a dishwasher, and it was a really good thinking space. And I remember just kind of having this moment of like, I don't know, if I was being honest with myself, I think I'd really like to maybe be in business leadership to the extent of ideally like a CEO seat. But I didn't want to spend 40 years of my life climbing a ladder somewhere and get there and find out I sucked at it.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to get to a space where I was finally in my 40s. And that's where I think a lot of midlife crises come up for people, is they spend their life going after a dream that they have maybe in their early 20s, late 20s. And then when you get there, you're like, what was this worth? And so I just felt like, I don't know, I'm a big believer now in the idea of starting small. And so at the time I was like, what if I just did it? And I tried to be a CEO, and I saw like, do I like this? Am I good at it? Am I not good at it? And then it also kind of checked a lot of boxes where I had this apartment, like I mentioned, on campus. So if the business didn't make money, like I wasn't getting evicted. If I didn't make money, like I wasn't not eating, because at the worst, like I could just go eat on campus, even though I was getting sick of it. Like I didn't have to buy groceries. And so it kind of fit this like I had some time and availability to be able to maybe squeeze in this side hustle endeavor into my life. And it just kind of checked a lot of boxes, that thought. And then also, I remember driving down, it was kind of funny, 221, which is where we launched the first Rookies. And I remember seeing businesses on the left and to the right, like everywhere. Mm-hmm. And this was in an area of town I rarely drove. We were going out to dinner out in that end of town. My wife and I had a date night. And I just kind of had this aha moment of like, there's so many small businesses out there, not even big businesses, just local businesses and they happen to stay open every day. And I'm like, why not us? Like, we could probably figure it out to some extent. And so it kind of gave me that aha moment of like, I think we could try it and do this. And so we just figured, what the heck? Like, let's try it.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting, because in business, sometimes you feel like it's almost like someone needs to give you permission or something to do something. And then you realize, no one's going to tell us like we have to do this. So you just went for it. And I guess the risk felt like manageable enough. Like you could kind of get your head around I read on your website some that like, the food truck specifically, like you kind of could get your head around running a food truck and stuff, and even like tell us a little bit about how did it start with the cookies and the food truck? Why that specifically?
Yeah, I'll remember a conversation too. I had a buddy who was living in Raleigh at the time, and I had told him, like, I think I just want to start this business. And I could see food A to Z. I don't know why. I'd worked one cafe job in high school, but I could just see, like, okay, what it would take to build a brand, to build a space, to build an experience. Like, I could just see it in my head. And that's something that our team probably gets frustrated when I say something. Like, we'll be whiteboarding something and I'll say, like, I can see it. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but like, and if I can't see it, then I can't connect with it. And if I can't see it A to Z, I don't know how to do it. And so I remember telling my buddy about, I think I want to start a food truck. And he's like, why? Like, there's no money in food trucks. Like, start a pet sitting website. And this was in 2016. Like, a pet sitting website pre-COVID could have been amazing because of the pet boom we just saw in the last few years. Like, I could have been way out of here sitting, on a beach somewhere. And I was like, but again, that wasn't why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it to make money. I was doing it to learn. And I could just see, like, a truck A to Z. And so it also helped too that when we started to talk about the idea, we started to talk about, and I say we, it was my wife and I, we were just sitting around in our apartment on drives, just conversing, and we still do that a lot, dreaming and iterating on ideas. And the thing we were saying was, like, I think it'd be really cool to build a truck that kind of challenges the status quo from an aesthetic point of view. You walk up to a lot of trucks and they're very sterile. It's a lot of stainless steel. It's a lot of funky graphics. And that's cool if you're in New York City. But I just felt like there was maybe a homey approach we could take.
Yeah.
This was, again, 2015, 2016. Magnolia and Chip and Joanna were booming, and DIY was getting, really, really popular. And so we just kind of tried to take a page out of their book and say, could we make something aesthetically pleasing in the food truck scene? So my wife did this, like, beautiful little sketch of this trailer, and I'm like, that's it, right? So we had this, all of a sudden we're starting to accumulate these pieces of, like, I think I want to do food because I can see it A to Z. It's simple too, right? It's cheap enough. I wrote out scratched out a budget for about $25K that I figured we could start a business for $25,000 if we built the trailer ourselves. And that was, opposed to a lot of companies were spending $150,000 to $200,000 on a brick and mortar.
Sure.
And you're so fixed to a lease, you can't take it anywhere. It's like, it's so permanent in a way.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of commitment. And so again, I was looking to hedge my bets with this kind of this flexible business model. And so when we wrote the budget, we were like, you know what? I think we could go and find something in this price range. So we went and found a trailer. And it was only until I called a mentor to ask, should we build a trailer from scratch? Should we buy a trailer? What do you suggest? And he was like, you really need to know what you're doing. Like, what are you even doing? You're saying food. Are you selling food? And the whole time we thought no dessert. Like, Lynchburg was kind of void of a destination at night. In my opinion, like, it was just a place that didn't have any cool vibes at night that I thought, we could maybe try to create a space. Yeah. So it was more about creating a space and experience than it was a product. And so we knew that dessert was going to be the kind of the end product. But how and what that dessert was going to be, we product tested a couple other things, and we landed on cookies and ice cream. I really like baking, and so I thought I could hole up in a trailer for 2 hours on end and just flour, butter, sugar, podcast in the background, and it would be a joy whether I made money or not. I could enjoy that for a few years and just try my hand at opening a business. So
yeah, that's been something really cool to see. Is like, you obviously, like, the product, I guess, was cookies and ice cream, but it was just driven by so much of your own personal experience and, like, wanting to try something, wanting to, like, experiment and learn with business, but then also, like, that building a place for the community and stuff like that. And I think that's something that really inspires me, is that the vision was bigger than just, like, cookies and ice cream in the product, but building a place for the community. And, like, all through your website, you talk about things like even very practical things about, like, having one line so that as you're standing in line, people have time to, like, chat and get to know each other, or when you hire your staff, like, the values that you look for in them and, like, the type of people that you hire. I can tell that it's all, like, very integrated. And so you mentioned the phrase, like, challenging the status quo with like the aesthetic of the business, and also I guess the whole experience of a food truck. So what are some things you've learned now that you've done this a little bit, that y'all are kind of, like, continuing to do that, like, continuing to try to, I guess, challenge the status quo and, like, improve even from where you started? Yeah,
I mean, I think you hit on a couple of things that are, I don't know, near and dear to our heart, from the position of even, like, something that's cohesive, right? You mentioned kind of all these things that fit together. I'm kind of a perfectionist, and we really enjoy pushing the envelope of, like, okay, why do we do? I ask a lot of why questions, especially with my wife, like, why are we doing it this way, or why should we try to approach? And then also, I think, I really tried to be empathetic to how people feel. So that helps us in a way when you talk about our staff and our team and kind of how we're trying to incorporate that into day to day now. So where we began was it checked this box, this question of like, how do we, I don't know, actually step into the space, right? So we had to think small, and we had to do something small, which was cookies and ice cream. And I don't wake up every day to make cookies and ice cream. I'm not like this cookie and ice cream snob. Like, I do love a good cookie, like there's no doubt, but
For sure.
we do it for so much more, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in our heads and our hearts and our actions. And that's going to start to play out hopefully into the space, and it is playing out in the space in the next year or two, where we've been able to finally have some resources, not just financial resources, but space resources to be able to host people in this space. So like this year, we finally have internships. It's been something I've been dreaming of for years, where we can have people come into this space and get their hands on some things that they may not otherwise get their hands on, other than maybe a case study in their classroom. Yeah. And I just think there's so much practicality to a small business hands-on than there is a case study for like a CVS, right? Yeah. It's so ethereal. And I think that there's so much value to being able to get your hands on something. And that's something we're trying to create. So the behind the scenes question that's happening for us from a status quo perspective is just, okay, how do we give people more in their paycheck? And I'm just obsessed with learning. I think like I really, that was one of the biggest things that was a passion for us starting this was, I just want to learn. I just want to embrace the fact that I'm 24 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing. It was probably only until I was like 28 that someone was like, hey, you're not a kid anymore. Like, you got to step up and like embrace the fact that like you're not a child anymore, and like you can't hide behind that excuse, which was a fair call out. But at the end of the day, I really love the kind of the position of just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, please help me. Please give me some advice and wisdom. I think when we're open and responsive to that, I hope maybe in 30 or 40 years, I switch positions to be able to coach a little bit more. And there are times where it's kind of a back and forth. Yeah. But I think when it comes to that question of like, what are the next steps for us as we challenge the status quo, I think it's really in that space of we're watching a lot unfold in education and in the labor force, that I just feel like there's so much space as a business to practically come alongside people and work with people. And again, it's cookies and ice cream. Like, we're not talking about this crazy thing. So some people their end roads with us will always be just a scooper or a cashier, but others will step into this office and work with us in other positions or other capacities that will maybe give them their hands-on experience that will hopefully set them up on a trajectory where they're like, man, I never would have even considered this an option in my life. And that's really exciting for us to be able to have a space that we're actively creating to bring people into. It's not perfect, but it's very much something we're excited about.
Yeah. Well, it's really clear that you're like super passionate about it, and that is inviting, people want to be around something like that. Yeah. So I'm curious, like when I first knew of Rookies as a college student, it was the food truck off the side of the road, and the line was always super long because everyone loved going there. Yeah. But since then, you guys have expanded quite a bit, like in multiple Rookies locations, and then even starting another business, right, with Bacon Street Bagels. Yeah. And so I'm curious, I was even looking at Bacon Street Bagels, and I noticed that a lot of the same like DNA that was in Rookies is also in there. Yeah. And so it seems like you found something that is scalable, and like you found kind of like your DNA as a business owner or leader and what you want to provide. And then that can express itself in different ways, whether it's multiple cookie locations or bagels or even just other things in business. So what would you say is that like DNA, like no matter what we're doing, whether it's cookies, bagels, something completely different, like these are the things that we are near and dear to us and we want to hold on to?
That's a good question. I think the thing that pops off to me right away, that's maybe it's just recency bias, but it's in my head, is that we really sweat the small stuff. Like, I just find that there is so much power and intentionality from all levels and all spheres of business. And that stems from your high level structure and your finances and how you put together a strategic business model, but then on the bottom level of literally how your cashier feels when she's walking into work. Yeah. And I just think that there's so much power in being able to say, like, we care about a lot of these things. Not, you can't care about everything to the full extent. But I think that one of the biggest things, the DNA, is like, we really care about people. It is not about, like, what drives me, what wakes me up every day is not making money. I would like to make more money. Right now, I have not hit that point in my career where I'm like, you know what, I can comfortably buy like the nicer diapers for my kids. Like we're buying the Parents' Choice Walmart brand stuff for everything because we've denied raises. We've denied taking excessive money at this stage in our careers because we really believe in the growth and the next steps of where we're headed. And so money is definitively not why I wake up in the morning. It's very clearly like I'm really passionate about working alongside people and growing with people and creating spaces with people. Like I just believe in that it takes a village mentality. And so I think that kind of like intentionality on the base level, and then that passion for people is probably the DNA that we'd like to scale. I think it's been challenging to scale. I think it's good to hear you say that, but I think in 2020, if you would have asked me when we were right at the beginning of opening up Bacon Street, I would have told you I was very, very tired because, it was all on me. And so we've taken some steps this year to finally try to scale me a little bit, try to bring in some people who are going to bring their secret sauce to the spaces that we feel really passionate about. Yeah. But I think it all stems from really trying to just be as kind and as good to people as we would want to be treated. And I think you can do that in a business space. Like, I think you can do that and still make money. And again, we won't do it perfectly. When I say that, I mean, like, we've made mistakes. We've hurt people because they believe in the vision, they believe in the dream, and then we under-deliver on the promises we've made. And so I have to, learn how to not say too much and how to actually guard those things. And then there's a lot of lessons learned there, but that's just one of them, right? I've overpromised and hurt people in this past year, and I've got to sit down with them and apologize. But I think there's something, when you can be human in the way that you do business, I think there's something really rewarding. And I think kind of special. Like, there's something tangible when you walk into a Rookies or even into Bacon Street. There's an atmosphere that's really welcoming and warm, and it's something that we're going to be really intentional to scale to that. Because if that's missing, then like the whole thing's missing. Then we're not really doing what we want to do.
Yeah, I really love that, and I think that is like, as I just think about you, it seems like that is really the heartbeat. Even as I was reading a little bit about Bacon Street and things like that, you guys had a quote on your website that was essentially like, we want to make sure that our staff and the people that come in here like have an awesome experience, like that they feel something and enjoy this. And then we believe that like our great product is going to like give them a reason to gather and like almost comes naturally and comes second. Yeah. And I think that's really wise. So I'm curious, almost like removing you a little bit from Rookies, or looking at you as just like your own development apart from your business. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners, like when they get started, they have tons of ideas, like tons of passions, like kind of want to do all the things, which is really helpful in like getting started and figuring out what you're good at. Yeah. But as you've been doing this a couple of years now, do you feel like you've narrowed in a little bit on what can Jordan do that like not everyone can do, and like this is the way that you're most effective, like this is what everyone needs from you. So how you kind of found your lane?
How I found my lane, that's a good question. I think I'm still finding it. Like I think it's a seasonal choice in a way. Like I find there will be months or even like quarters in which I will find true peace and direction, but I kind of am a tortured soul. Like my wife is like the greatest bearer of that too, where I will just like iterate and confess and iterate like all these different ideas and things to her. And I think like I still am finding that lane. I think I have a few answers to that question of like, okay, I know I'm really observant. I know I'm creative. I know that I can sense how people want to feel, and I can try to create a space for that. I think I make people comfortable, and I can make spaces that make people feel comfortable, and environments and cultures that make people feel accepted. But again, there are cons to those, and I'm trying to round those out. But I think ultimately, we are starting to find a lane. I think the truth is, from an entrepreneurial perspective, if someone is thinking like, I want to start something, you have to scale it and walk it back to the simplest version, and maybe not even the simplest version of the thing you want to do at the end. You just have to start somewhere. Like that's literally been a mantra for us recently. Like just start somewhere, because I'm not really doing exactly what I want to be doing for the rest of my life yet. Like I'm 29. I'm on the brink of 30. I'm turning 30 this week, and I'm staring down what feels like the edge of death to me, even though it's really like I'm still really young. And I need to tell myself that, because we're still not doing what it is that we set out to do. So even back when I was washing dishes thinking, I want to start a company, I'm still not in that seat that I really envisioned for myself just yet. And that's okay. Like I have to be okay with the journey of being 29 and learning what it looks like to be now a true CEO of the company. Back then I was just literally like the shift lead, and then I graduated to general manager, and now I've graduated to like, okay, I'm operating my company, and now I'm like, I'm actually the CEO of this company. In some ways, and not fully in a lot of ways. And so I'm still not in the full seat that I want to be in. So I know that this year we chose to double down on just patience, on stewardship, on like, okay, we have these spaces, we have these people. Let's be really intentional with what we've been given this year. And let's continue to just double down on listening and being patient to what is to come, because we know we'll get there someday, because we really want it. It's not this like this it's not a fleeting passion. It's been something that's been on our hearts since I was 23, 24. And so now we have 5 to 6 years to weigh that against with experience. And today, the conversation that after I have with you, the next conversation, the next meeting that I have is a lot about that. I'm like, I'm coming to someone who's in their 70s saying, I want to go here. What do you think? What do you think my first step should be? Because quite honestly, I don't know. I still don't know how to get to that space perfectly clearly, and I need someone with some wisdom and age to be able to speak into that. And so, I'm still finding my lane. But there are things we can extrapolate and take away that we're like, okay, we know we can weigh that against, what we know.
And honestly, that's something I feel like we're all doing in different ways, and will continue to do for the rest of our lives. And I remember I had a mentor share with me one time, this may be helpful for you, but she told me that we don't have to be at like our final destination in life, but we can see where we're at right now as like a formative station in our life. And just kind of, I think, the wisdom in recognizing like, okay, this might not be where I am going to be for the rest of my life, or this might not be the thing that I set out to do, but this is forming me. This is really good for where I'm at now, and learning how to just invest in what you're doing right now, I think is good. So I'm also curious, like, as someone like you kind of embody the principle of like, just get started, like kind of go for it. Like, almost like start before you're ready type thing. Like your story of, you're getting your MBA and you're like, I feel like I could learn more if I started my own business than if I like just continue to sit in class. So I feel like that is so ingrained in your personality. But I'm curious, like, now that you have a little bit of experience, I feel like that if we wait for everything to be like perfect and we know everything before we get started, there's a chance that we like never start. But as someone who has now like started something, is there something that you feel like now as you continue to start other things, or if you give advice to people that are looking to start their first thing, like what do they almost need to have in mind or think about as they're getting started?
I really think that I believe wholeheartedly, like, start somewhere. And I think too that if you think you have this great idea, like, there's probably 1,000 other people in this country and planet, or even just maybe in your local area, that are thinking it as well. And my wife and I, when we were younger, we realized like there are those who do and there are those who don't. And I think at the end of the day, like, I wasn't sitting on a pile of cash. I had to take debt. We've still had to take debt with this business. Like, we could have sought investment, but we've strategically chose not to. There are roadblocks and inhibitors for everyone in every way, and some are going to be larger than others, like inherently, right? I was given a ton of advantages, and I recognize that, but at the same time, there were still roadblocks, and I had to push through those. And I just think that, like, I still to this day, after my experience, I am the biggest believer in start somewhere. Just start, and not just figure it all out, right? But you're right. If you wait to just have a comprehensive, perfect picture, of a comprehensive package of what you're doing, like, you just won't really do it. I hope that as our business grows, we get more talented people on our team to be able to create and iterate better end products when we launch something, because we have launched to some absolute scrambles. Like, we knew nothing about bagels when we opened. Thankfully, we were able to put something on the map that was like decent for a week until we figured it out. But literally, we hadn't made bagels in our oven until the night before we opened. So there is like there is a better way to do things in some regard. But I think that I just believe so wholeheartedly in, like, just start. And I think don't be afraid to be apologetic early on. Like, I don't think you need people's pity, but at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur who's looking to start something similar to where you're at with this podcast, like, you're marketing yourself as a photographer, right? And but yet you have this passion to get into spaces where you have conversations, and there's kind of a larger narrative at play with Austin that maybe not people don't see, but the next step for you is like, I got to do this podcast. I don't care what anybody says. Like, I'm going to go on Amazon, I'm going to buy all this stuff, and I'm going to ship it to my house because I'm just going to figure it out. And I just think that there's something really great about that, whether that company ends up being on the Fortune 500 list, or just ends up being a local, like, I don't know, icon. It's something that fits what you're missing in your community or in your space that you would yourself would want. So I do, like, not to kill a dead horse. I believe in starting somewhere, and then learn along the way and just keep iterating. And I think you ask for other people's patience with that. So where I've gone wrong is I cast this beautiful vision, blue sky vision, rarely is reality in that space, right? We're getting to that space, and it's going to take us a long time to get there. So let's embrace the now, enjoy the ride, which means there are bumps and bruises on the road, and there are ups and downs. So let's love the mountaintops, and let's embrace the valleys as we're going about this journey of business. And I've had to learn to be content in that, because I get discontent because I just want it now. That's my big question today with this lady is like, here's what I want to do right now. But the truth is I'm not ready for that. I need to step there. So start now, take the next step, then take the next step, then take the next step. And then fast forward 100 steps and you'll probably finally get there. But there are other ways to do things too.
Yeah. And sometimes the next step reveals itself as we take that initial step. Yeah. And I know that one of the things that was most helpful for me in even just starting this podcast was just taking the pressure off of needing everyone to love it or everyone to think it's a huge success. And it was I'm doing this because I want to learn. I'm doing this kind of for me. And I think sometimes just we can have this vision of if if it doesn't become a Fortune 500 company, then was it a failure? And it's no, actually it wasn't, because I learned so much along the way.
And I had fun, right? Yeah. I made some memories. So I just think, I'm with you on that. I just think there's a lot more boxes that can be checked in terms of success than just, did I make a ton of money?
So, Jordan, one thing I've learned a little bit about you is that you are a dreamer. And I was reading a little bit of the story of you and your wife and how you originally met and asked her out. And I feel like that is just a story that almost epitomizes you and being willing to take risk and just go for it. So I want you to share that story with us.
Good work. Can I ask you where you heard that? Or was it?
It was a blog.
No way.
Your wife wrote a blog post on your website.
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't know that.
And told your story. So.
Okay, so we'll take it back, pre-beard, I'm still barely 135 pounds, and at that age I was barely 120 pounds. I was 5'7", and she played field hockey at Liberty for a year. She's 5'7", and so I was maybe she's gonna think I'm too short. There was all these questions going into it. But what drove me, as a dreamer, what drove me to just finally being I have to do something. That's literally the pattern of my life is I just get tormented by something until I have to do something about it. And she was one of those things. It was just I have to walk up to her. I have to be able to, I wasn't even man, I got to go out with this girl. I was I just needed her to know my name. I knew her name. I knew everything about her. Yeah. I started making friends of friends because I was trying to get closer than I was trying to get 1 degree of separation away from her so that I could name drop and then be able to be a little more approachable and comfortable than just some guy at the university. And so I really was just trying to get a little closer to her. But I think at the end of the day, I was all right, I just have to know her because I want to be able to just say, hey, Holly, and her to say, hey, Jordan, as we were walking to our classes and shoot the breeze and go about our lives. And there was really no, long-term ulterior motives other than that, other than just I just need to meet her. And so, I thought, okay, we can maybe go out once, right? And it was mostly just to break the discomfort of me walking up and approaching her. And so at Liberty, you guys can't go in girls' dorms. There's all that nonsense. And she lived on these older dorms that they've since torn down, but they were single level. And I had bought tickets to a play for the next day. So it was a Saturday, and I bought tickets to the play on Sunday because I needed some skin in the game, right? $14 was everything to me at 18. And I was I'm just going to buy these tickets and put my money where my mouth is, and I have to ask her out today. So I bought 3 tickets actually, just in case she said no, so that I could bring some buddies with me in case to this play. Yeah. I don't know why. I just
gave yourself an out.
I thought a play was a good scene. You could talk. You could, there was an intermission. It was it was fixed, and they also had just done a number in Convocation that week, and it was sick. It was Hairspray. They did a really good job, and I was that'd be a cool show. Yeah. So I buy these tickets. All day goes by Saturday. I've passed by her a few times. There was this football game. I saw her, and I just didn't have the courage to. I see her in the cafeteria that we have, and I just never really got the gumption to do it. So then that night, my buddies were well, tomorrow's the big day. You got to ask her today. What are you going to do? And I was I'll find out where she lives on campus and knock on her window. And one of the guys in the dorm had a class with her and knew where she lived. I knocked on her window. There was a few other moments in there of running around, and anyways, the rest was history. I knocked on her window, and I just introduced myself. I told her I'd seen her on campus. I thought she was beautiful. And that I wanted to maybe spend some time with her once, right? Just let me hang out with you once. And she thought it was a bet. She earlier that day, some guy had asked her for a number and said like, my buddies bet me $20. I couldn't get your number. She's like, I'll give it to you if you give me $10 or something like that, right? So she'd already had somebody like, egged on to
a little bit of a businesswoman herself.
Yeah, no, big time. Yeah, she's an opportunist. And so I introduced myself. I asked her if she could go out. She kind of thought it was a bet, so I kept pushing for before this fall break that was coming up, and she was like, no. And she was like, I'm busy. I'm not going to be able to swing it. Again, she was being defensive because she thought I was up to it. And regardless, I got to meet her. So, right, I shake her hand. I say, see you later.
What you didn't say about this is that she wrote on the blog post is that you also had your buddy videotape this whole experience. And so as she's having this conversation with you, so your buddy's over there recording it.
Yeah.
So
that was like the moment. I was like, all right, great to meet you. See you later. I walk away and she pokes her head out and she's like, hey, hold on 1 second. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to say that she wants to hang out with me. Mm-hmm. And she was like, who's out there? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, why does he have a video camera? She's looking down at my buddy Sean. He literally has one of those old flip video cameras. And she was like, why is he filming this? And dude, I froze. Like I had nothing.
Yeah.
And then there was like 10 guys with me that had heard me just fawning over this girl. They wanted to know, like, was I actually going to follow up with this? They're all hiding in the bushes and trees. And it's stereotypical Liberty. For anybody who didn't go to Liberty, it's like, that sounds miserable. And it was, right? It was like, so super uncomfortable. I pass out. We leave and my buddies were like, dude, you have to go back. Like you can never show your face to her again if you don't lock something in. So I went back. I knocked on the window again 5 minutes later. This time her roommates are there, arms crossed, like kind of like just trying to get me out of there. And I was like, look, like just can we hang out? And so she was like, after fall break, find me on Facebook. And easy, right? I already had that like pretty much bookmarked. Like, she was like, find me on Facebook, send me a message, and we can do something after fall break. And I was like, great. And we hung out, 2 or 3 weeks later with a big group of friends. And from there, it just kind of slowly evolved over the course of like 5 months. She finally became comfortable with the idea of dating me. So
yeah. Well, I love that story. I thought it was so funny. I was just reading in Holly's words how that whole experience went down, and it was really funny. But it kind of it seems like very early on or like ingrained in you is this like dreamer and even this idea of like having your friend videotape it. Yeah. And then she wrote that later you guys actually showed that like at your wedding. That
my best
video.
man played it unbeknownst to me. Like it was cool. It was one of those moments. Like we have a video of when we first met.
Yeah.
Did I anticipate that? Like maybe I thought it would be cool at the time, but like was it really going to work out? I was 18. Like was I going to marry this girl? I didn't know. Like I just wanted to hang out with her and just get to know her. And so yeah, it was crazy, man. And I mean honestly though, I got lucky, right? She was the type of girl that was willing to be like up for an adventure. And thankfully I wasn't creepy to the extent that she was like worried.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you though, kind of like bridging from that. So what do you feel like drives that dreamer spirit in you? Because part of it, just hearing, sounds like, a lot of people are afraid to do something because like, well, what if I fail? What if I get rejected? What if this doesn't work? But maybe in relationships and in business and stuff, it's kind of like, well, what if it actually does work? And what if it turns out good? But what would you feel like whenever, you go to start something new and you have that little bit of, oh, like, should I do this? Is this a bad idea? Like, is this dumb? What kind of like helps you propel you forward and to do it anyway? I
think I have more of that than I probably let on, of like fail safe, worst case. And I think we just ask ourselves a lot, like, what is the worst case? So for me, what was the worst case with Holly? I have to like dip out of hallways so that I don't see her. Well, she was like in a different major than me. Like I was seeing her around on campus a lot, but like I could avoid her. It's a big campus.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like the risk outweighed the reward. I wasn't really even thinking of like, like the reward either. I really look at the risk actually more than anything. I really look at like, am I okay and comfortable? Can I stay who I am? And can I stay on board with like, can I stay true to who I am? And do what I say and stick to my values when it gets tough. Like, and that relates to business, right? It's the same thing with Holly. If she said no, was I going to still be like an approachable, and just like what's that person like to her if I ever saw her again? Yeah, I wasn't going to like be weird and just keep pressing for something probably. So yeah, I think when it comes to being a dreamer, like I really assess the risk. It's a big board game to me. Like life is like, in some ways, right? It's business especially is kind of like a big board game, and you're looking how to hedge and assess your opportunities and your weaknesses and kind of what you can and go after and what's in your wheelhouse, what you can afford, And so, yeah, I'm a big risk assessment person. And then you're right. It comes down, as a dreamer, comes down to risk tolerance. How much are you comfortable with saying like you can tolerate inside a business? There's a reason why I'm not in 100 locations with rookies. I'm quite frankly not that comfortable with risk. And there are companies that started the same year we started that are in 250 locations in the United States because they're a little more comfortable with risk. And personally, like I don't know. I've taken risks that make me feel pretty uncomfortable at times.
Yeah.
But I think that what drives me as a dreamer is innate in some ways, right? It's just like I think the pattern that I have to follow with my wife, with our businesses, is that I just have this fire sometimes inside of me that will not go out. I cannot deny it. I wake up, I think about it, I wake up, I think about it, I wake up, I think about it, and I'm like, I have to do something. I just have to. And so I really feel like a lot of what we're doing is just out of, I have to do it. And so as a dreamer, yeah, it's really easy to put on rose-colored glasses and think about what you think your future or the world could be like. But I think reality looks a little different. And again, going back to what I said, like you have to enjoy the ride. And I've had to tell myself that because I've had some pretty sad days. Like, I've had some days where it's been hard to believe. It's been hard to see it. Even in my relationship with Holly, I'm like, well, I had expectations for what she would be like before I met her at the window. And then I had to learn that was so unfair of me to think that like, oh, this is what you'd be like,
Yeah.
And then I had to learn who she really was, and then I fell in love with that, and then even on the other side of marriage, I'm like, holy cow, like I didn't even realize half of who this person was in some ways, and our friendship has grown tremendously over the last since marriage especially, which is crazy. But yeah, I think I don't know, that's a convoluted question with a convoluted answer, but yeah.
No, well, honestly, I feel like it's good to hear that it's not all perfect all the time, but then also it's really I think I can relate to the sense of you start out maybe like before you do something, you have an idea or expectation of what you think it could be, what you hope it will be, and stuff like this, and then you get into it and you experience what it is, and sometimes that can be disappointing. But then I think over time we actually learn to like love the real thing more than we thought we would love like the imaginary thing that we had dreamed up.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like as you continue to think about where you're headed in your life and in your business and stuff, what are kind of some of the dreams that are still like, I guess, developing in you that you see yourself moving forward or seeing your business move forward? And is the dream for you like to be like those companies that you were saying and have like 250 locations, or is it to like what do you feel like is a win for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's on the heart. It's becoming comfortable with saying it out loud at times with people. I think a few years ago, I had approached my wife. I'd been wrestling with the idea of success. What is success? What does it mean? I felt like the answer for me, and right, I'm coming from a background of faith, and I felt like it was obedience to God's direction and plan and steps that he was leading us to. And then I also felt like it was like commitment and essentially like just stewardship to those things, and being able to stay faithful to something that you've been given, whatever size that is. And so again, that's coming from a background of faith, but I feel like the obedience part could be intrinsic to a person who's not a believer. The faithfulness is a very, I think, honest call to just like stay true to what you've been given, right? Stay in your lane. Yeah. And so I hope that's universal to most. But at the end of the day, I think that a few years ago I was wrestling with that, and I finally had the gumption to tell my wife and say, listen, like, I don't know if this is going to be the case, but I feel like we're on a path where we're supposed to be a larger business. I do not think that we're supposed to be a small business in Lynchburg. I think we're supposed to scale outside of the city. I think we're supposed to scale ourselves, our personalities, our example of who we are. I feel like this is a platform we're supposed to create. And I shared that with her and only her on the front porch of our home back in maybe 2018. And I've slowly become comfortable with the idea of telling, a few people. Like I believe in our future as business leaders because we have this why not us mentality. Like I will not do it perfectly, but I believe that I will steward what we've been given, especially people, as the best we can. So whether that's 5 people, we'll do the best we can. Ideally, it will be 500 people, 5,000 people, 50,000 people. I don't know what size that is going to be, so I'm not going to weight my success on a number, rather the principles of obedience and faithfulness. I hope it grows. I really hope. I don't know how many locations Rookies will have. I don't know how many locations Bacon Street could have. Bacon Street, quite frankly, probably should have more down the road. It's way more scalable. But yeah, we're not done. Like, I think our ultimate mission is going back to that point of people and experience and education. One of the frontiers I'd really like to get into, probably for the next 10 years of my career, is experiential learning. Trade schools for young people, right? Iterating on what you're good at, what you're not, and identifying in yourself, like, why are you doing that? Does that make sense? So that in 10 years, when you step into your career, you have the ability to challenge that discontentment in your heart and be able to say, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense. And so I think where I really want to sit, we're building this, this conglomerate. Without getting too technical, we're building this small conglomerate right now, where we have a couple of businesses. We've got a property holding company. So when we open up a shop, we kind of build some equity in the long term. But ideally, like, I'd really like to be in a space where we're educating and developing and also incubating. I really love creating ideas. And that's like, did I create 2 businesses that have groundbreaking ideas? No, we haven't solved big problems yet, but I'm learning. Yeah. And my hope is in my 30s, I start to solve bigger problems. And I think if I show it and I'm faithful with the little problems I've solved, which is, we found out a way to bring breakfast to a town that we felt like was void of good breakfast options. Not entirely. There are good breakfast options, but it was missing something. We felt like we were able to answer the problem of creating an experience for people in a town that needed something like that. So maybe next we can try to create a small sect of education for college students who are wrestling with, what the heck do I do in life? Like, where am I going? And so I hope that in 10 years, 15 years, we're able to start to solve bigger issues. I don't know what they are yet. I really have no clue what they are. But my hope is we get to take a swing at them someday, and we get to swing at them with wicked fun people and really, encouraging and inspiring environments. And so if it ends here, if it ends in this office, and I sit here for the next 20 years, the only thing that's missing from my career is the ability to iterate and create new ideas and innovate on ideas and see them come to life. Drew up an org chart for our like conglomerate yesterday for the first time. It was super cool. And I was like, there are a few more brands missing from this. Like, I still want to, we're talking about starting a new business this year, and a couple of them actually, but one in particular that is another brand, like, that would have another product. I do want to get away from food a little bit. Like, I want to be able to differentiate from food, not just food. But we are creating probably another food product. And dude, I could have ran home from work. Like, I live 20 minutes away. Like, I could have just jogged all the way. Like, I was so high on the supply. And so I do love that. And so that's the only thing that's missing, is like, if I do graduate out of this position, I'd like it to be in a space where I get to continue to create and inspire with people. Not alone. I really don't want to do it alone. I just want to do it with a team, which is, has its challenges as well. But that's, man, I hope we're not done. I can get more specific, but I think it's probably better that I stay up, but it's up to you. We can get more specific.
That's really helpful. And my hope for you guys is you keep swinging for the fences. And what's cool is that I think that you have really built a business around your values and like things that you care about, but you've also built a business like kind of in a way that fits you really well and has given you a chance to dream and to be creative and to inspire, but also like build community and things like that. And I think that would just be my hope for you guys, is whether you expand or you decide to stay where you're at or do something different and move into like education and helping train other people and stuff like that, whatever it is, would just be that it doesn't become so big that the visionary and the dreamer and the willing to take risk gets drowned out by like the needing to just sustain what is. And so just keeping that, the business integrated with your values, I think is going to help you guys go a long way.
Hopefully. That's a challenge, right? Like, when you do scale, the guy, John, who's in the other room, who's running the day-to-day, his big thing, he came in, he shadowed me for 2 days to maybe come in and work in the company. And he was like, dude, the biggest thing we have is like, we need to scale you. Like, you're our problem right now. Like, you and Holly. And I was like, shoot. Like, so I realized, like, okay, like, if we're going to scale these values, we gotta bring in people who have them and then try to duplicate and replicate that way. And again, if duplication or replication keeps us away from that, then I don't want it. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to be able to stay true to who we are. However, I want to be faithful, however size we are, right? So as long as I'm being faithful now, that's all I can answer to. And hopefully in 5 years, I'm still being faithful to whatever size or space or, thing that we're in. But I appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I think we're going to wrap up the podcast there. But Jordan, thank you so much for just being on today. It was seriously a pleasure chatting with you. And I've probably going to go get some rookies really soon. So
Open on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Next week, Tuesdays. But yeah.
All right.
I appreciate it.